Last time, we explored the early development of Luigi's Mansion for the Nintendo GameCube, but originally it was not for the GameCube, but rather the Nintendo 64, before technical limitations forced the game to be moved to the next generation. Originally starting out with Mario as a playable character, with an apartment complex and even a ninja mansion considered as the setting of the game, before settling on the Haunted Mansion aesthetic, and soon going on to develop early enemy ghosts, who ranged in shapes and sizes, while all tinted blue for Luigi to suck up with his original and boxy version of the Poltergust. But soon Space World 2000 approached, where the game was shown off and revealed a simple trailer for the masses to see and be excited for the first time, an approach that outlets loved after years of Mario being in the spotlight. Now with Space World 2000 over, development was going into full gear in order to ready it for launch, but throughout that time, numerous aspects of the game changed and evolved, from various enemies, maps, and even an entire cut multiplayer mode, let alone much staff drama starting up on what they should add or keep in order to actually release the game by launch. And so today on this final part, we shall explore the history and beta unused content of Luigi's Mansion. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button too, to further support us and keep creating new videos. And with nearly a year's development of building up since the August Space World 2000 trailer, E3 2001 on May 17th to the 19th came, and the fruits of labor were about to be shown. While Space World did reveal the Nintendo GameCube, this was the event to actually show it in full playability, showing actual playable demos of games including Super Smash Bros., Pikmin, and at long last, Luigi's Mansion. While the crowd loved the trailer at the trade show, the demo was what drew most in. Within the demo, it let one explore a chunk of the mansion, whereby many features weren't finalized yet, including the Poltergust overheating, as well as that ghost that would definitely scare Luigi. Interestingly, the old control scheme of C-stick controlling Luigi while the left stick controlling the Poltergust were there, which in this version was the first appearance of Professor Egad to the public, who in this version was actually the owner of this very mansion before changing the story to Luigi simply winning this mansion at random, which as such didn't have his lab outside as seen in this very opening video. The mansion in this build was described as an old famous mansion actually, whereas later on it was simply changed as being an apparition itself. One feature that was shown to the public was the Game Boy Horror, a communication device that Professor Egad would use to instruct Luigi, let alone its ability to let one view the map and inventory and see the mansion in first person. What was interesting about this version of the Game Boy Horror was that it had a real timer on it, counting from midnight to 1:30 a.m., whereby at 1:30, the demo would come to an abrupt end. And as such, rumors start floating around at the trade show that the timer was an indication that the complete game even ran on, whereby one might even only have a specified amount of time to save Mario, which if he didn't, could lead to a bad ending. Which some theorize this shot of Luigi looking extra depressed outside the mansion may be a result of that. While all these were just theories, the more likely scenario might be that they simply wanted to give people a time limit as to not hog the machine all day on the show floor. Meanwhile, borrowing another trait from Ghostbusters, the Game Boy Horror was going to have a ghost tracker, where a little light on the top of it would flicker red near a ghost. In fact, within the Game Boy Horror of this demo, maps of the entire mansion did exist that once data mined showed several differences with what was to come. For one, on the first floor, the butler's room and the hidden room are connected to one another via a door, meaning it wasn't so hidden originally. Just north of that, the kitchen and laundry door were connected via a door as well in this case. Meanwhile, the dining room was to originally have 3 additional doors that would have connected it to the hallway, billiards, and projector rooms, making for a massive hub zone there, as well as the door to the conservatory being accessible from across the washroom. Meanwhile, the foyer's second floor was to have a 3rd door that would lead into that hallway on the right before being removed, as well as an additional door that would lead into the wardrobe room from the washroom. Now, the oddity of the 3rd floor is that every room is connected to one another via a door. It can be theorized theorized that they weren't so sure what pathway they want to lay out just yet, so they kept it simple at that time. This along with one removed room that can be seen to the left of the large balcony area in the back. Meanwhile, the basement level had a smaller secret altar, which in retrospect makes sense since it just featured a portrait of Mario, but as well as the breaker room being accessible via this hallway instead. As well, Professor Egad's lab had a map too, showing how the lab was seamlessly connected via doors, a feature that showed that Luigi could at one point freely explore the lab, whereas soon that feature was removed. All of these being utilized with this doll of Luigi to possibly show where he is on the map at that time. And so people came out of the trade show hotly anticipating the game with an official release date of November 2001 in North America. And so development continued in refining and finishing the game on time. As a result, the mansion was being refined from what was seen at E3 2001. The build, for one, showed the master bedroom being a room that initially had 2 beds and blocked a window that you are required to flip in order to suck Lydia the ghost up. The child's room was just a simple room with ghosts, before the boss battle was added in. The bathroom, like in the final game, had a silhouette of what appears to be a rather curvy woman, which the audience had a good laugh at seeing it on stage at E3, but in the E3 2001 build, when Luigi pulled back, nothing was there. Eventually, a ghost was added. The dining room originally didn't have a portrait ghost here. Instead, it was just a collection of ghosts. As well, the shelf at the corner of the room wasn't there. And moving to Egad's lab, the gallery started out with rather different textures, including these stone and wooden textures, together with many lanterns, giving a more cruder underground appearance. Let alone there appears to be what might be coffins here, a rather dark theme even for this game. This being followed by an updated version that has a similar layout to the previous, but the textures were updated to be closer to the final games. Meanwhile, a completely dark version also was made for this, which had more concrete walls and instead of coffins, had unicorns, before coming to the final version that now sported the human statues. In relation to that, the Portificationizer room initially had a version whereby one could walk into it as indicated by this bump on the map, as opposed to being simply warped there like in the final game, resembling the map from the E3 version of the Game Boy Horror, which this version even included a door to the gallery unlike the final game. And many of the mansion's objects were being designed and refined throughout the stage. Doors originally had a very rough looking design, which some may presume that it could be a carryover from the Nintendo 64 days. In fact, a few more doors were cut, including a heart door, which would lead into the nursery, a star door leading into the twins' rooms, and even a lab door for the gallery room. These, along with a ton of cut furniture that would be fitting for this Western-style mansion, including this gold table for the mirror room, this love seat for the billiard room, a gramophone, which might have worked together with the projector in the projector room, bathroom drawers, which may have been cut due to clutter, 2 different vases, including 3 vases on a chair, 2 probably dying plants for the balcony, a ladder, a flower painting, a strange ice lantern for the cold storage, as well as toys for the nursery, including a teddy bear, toy tractor, and even the ceiling mobile bats. Meanwhile, several animations were being finalized, leading to many also not being used at all. Luigi himself has a very large number of unused animations, whether it be rolls, crouches, and various scared animations. Lydia the Ghost has an unused animation where she turns around, this being a leftover from E3 2001, where to capture Lydia, she must turn around like this. The next portrait ghost would be Uncle Grimly, who has a cut sneaking animation. Now, when it comes to more generic ghosts, animations of theirs were unused simply because mechanics changed, including a spawning animation, being blown away, as in escaping the vacuum's pull, a simple floating animation, which isn't seen as it is used when invisible, a scared animation, which likely was for the now cut concept of Luigi being scared and rushing backwards, and one where they failed to scare Luigi. In addition, the twirler has 3 unused animations exclusive to it, including a wind-up punch, an upwards punch, and one where it ground pounds, showing how much more aggressive they were planning to make this ghost. The bowling ghost has 2 unused animations too, one being of trying to capture it, which isn't used as it has no HP, and a chase animation as it never moves. Ceiling ghosts also have a similar case of unused animations, whereby it has a cut capture animation, but is also not used since it has no HP, as well as a failure to scare animation as well, along with having an idle animation, but it never goes used since it just hangs around to scare Luigi. Weirder is that it has an animation where it vanishes upwards, which is strange since it hangs upside down normally. Maybe this is how it would disappear originally? There is also the garbage can ghost, who has 1 idle animation to it, which goes unused as it only appears to eat a banana and toss it. The Boo family seem to have their own set of cut animations, including a spawning animation for regular Boos, as well as a laughing animation, which is only used by King Boo. Boolossus also has the same unused animations, except 3 others too, that are normally used only by the regular Boos, which includes a following animation and a hiding animation, as well as King Boo having a single unused hiding animation. All this may indicate that the Boo family likely had their animations all made from a regular Boo and just passed on to various versions seen in the game. Now, one of the most defining features of Luigi's Mansion is its music. Contrasting heavily with Mario's soundtrack, it was made eerie, spooky, and dark in comparison. Perfect for the Haunted Mansion's theme. The music was being composed by Kazumi Totaka. Totaka has been a long-time composer at Nintendo, making music for various Mario games as well as Animal Crossing on the Nintendo 64 in Japan, and as such is most famous for a short melody he puts into every game he works on, known famously as Totaka's Song, which first appeared in Mario Paint. And various other titles to follow. A very simple and short song, but whenever it composes, it finds its way deep into the game. This was going to be no different with Luigi's Mansion, which would have been heard during the control screen tutorial early in the game if left on it inactive for 3.5 minutes. However, Totaka's song differed between Japanese and English releases. Have a listen. Meanwhile, several other songs were being composed but never used, including early versions of the main theme, one for the observatory, one oddly enough being the Mario fanfare that was going to be used with the Boolossus boss fight somehow, as well as 2 early versions of the Mario theme heard in the conservatory. And an early version of the Room Clear jingle. In addition, were several sound effects and dialogue that got cut. One of these being more lines for Luigi.
Whoa! Hang on to Mario. Oh, nice doggy, nice doggy. Oh, pet.
Might have been simply for the intro to the Ghost Dog, along with several others. While to the masses the game looked to be going well, behind this scene however, it was becoming a madhouse. With the launch date coming quickly, there soon were arguments between designers and programmers on the ideas of having to cut content out and what to keep. In fact, it was to the point of more ideas being suggested than removed. Even producer Shigeru Miyamoto got in on it and suggested the ability to turn off the flashlight, which of course being a command from Miyamoto, that got in. This along with one more suggestion of Luigi tapping the wall immediately instead of going into a log animation that they originally had planned for him. In fact, many of the mechanics were finalized now too, including the overheat meter for the poltergust being removed, allowing for unlimited sucking. However, that meter was soon repurposed for the elemental attacks, which up to this point were unlimited in usage. Meanwhile, features like the ghost tracker were being modified to only detect boos, as it likely would be tough to distinguish between them and normal ghosts. Other ideas that were being added this late in development were Luigi's idle whistling and humming, and the ability to call Mario's name at any point. The humming was implemented as a further showcase of Luigi's urgency to find Mario, but as well a secondary reason of the staff not finding Totaka's tracks interesting enough and wanting to allow for this to come up at times. However, the humming was made to change in tempo depending on Luigi's health. Whereby it would slow down if he is on the verge of death, or play at a normal rate while he is healthy. This was a feature that was made possible not by playing a pre-recorded track, but rather using the console's sound functionality to produce and manipulate it. Some features, including Luigi being poisoned, were removed, where he would have lost health continuously. In fact, some graphics of Luigi exist that were meant for the endings depending on your results. One featuring Luigi being extremely happy with getting the best ending, another kinda happy with a more moderate ending, while one where he is super depressed, much as the Space World 2000 trailer Luigi, possibly the worst ending, utilizing a tent, which is very fitting of this expression. But while all those were small cuts, a major element of this game had to be cut: the multiplayer mode. While making the game, a co-op mode was in development, whereby alongside Luigi, you'd have Mario with his own poltergust vacuum on board. Strangely enough, the Mario used here for this version is taller than the Mario seen in game, possibly done as to not change his collision too much with Luigi's. In fact, the co-op mode stayed into the data of the final game, whereby if hacked and you add an additional playable character on screen, they both are functional and can suck the same ghost at the same time, and the screen will even split if they go too far away from each other. So yes, a playable Mario was being made here for co-op multiplayer, which would be odd as this would contradict the existing story, as Mario should be kidnapped. Perhaps another character being kidnapped instead? Or this was just a mode that was made more for fun than for story. And shortly after came Space World once more in late August 2001, a few weeks prior to launch in Japan, and its final appearance too at the trade show. The game was basically finalized here. No more overheat meter, and the clock function of the Game Boy Horror were gone. Despite that, a few minor differences stayed, such as camera angles, like the mansion scene from outside. After much anticipation for this launch game on the Nintendo GameCube, Luigi's Mansion released on September 14, 2001 Japan, and November 18, 2001 in North America. The game had decent reviews, ranging between 7 and 9 scores mainly. While reviewers such as GameSpy loved its graphics, design, and gameplay, its continuous problem was that of being compared to Mario. GameSpot in this case stating how it does not match up to Mario's previous adventures, while ones like All Games criticizing the game's length for being too short. But commercially, it was a great success, having the tough feat of carrying the GameCube's launch till the release of Super Smash Bros. Melee, which in itself wasn't an easy feat, but it still managed to sell 257,000 units in just its first week in North America, even outselling the amount of copies that Super Mario 64 sold in its opening weekend. Thus, it soon became among the first GameCube games to get a Player's Choice re-release, reserved for games that sold at least 1 million at the time. While the game sold well and had somewhat mixed reception, it created a massive legacy for Luigi and this game. At long last, Luigi was more than just being a green Mario, featuring a distinct personality, playstyle, and even genre, leading to the game to receive several cameos and appearances within other games too, including Super Smash Bros., the Mario Kart series, and even Nintendo Land. And eventually, a remake of this game for the 3DS came in 2018. whereby it not only remade the whole game, but brought in several features of not just its sequel, but also its cut content, including the cut co-op multiplayer mode, whereby the second player would now control a Luigi made of goo called Gooigi. And finally, utilizing the unused stereoscopic 3D here, using the 3DS's built-in 3D functionality. And eventually, Luigi's Mansion finally got a sequel on the 3DS called Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and a third game on the Switch. Instead of being handled by Nintendo EAD, the game went on to being notably developed by Canadian-based Next Level Games, and continuing the game's spirit for the future. And thank you for watching! Hit the subscribe button for I'll plan to be back for more Luigi and other games gaming history and cut content soon. Hit the like button and comment below on which cut feature you would have loved to have stayed into the final game. So everyone, thank you for watching!